Land back, everyone. Land back. Welcome to the Revolutionary Book Trap, Black Hammer's very own book club, where we delve deep into our literature, our revolutionary literature, and give you that anti-colonial understanding that we all need to bring us closer to revolution.
That's right.
Land back, everybody. So make sure you come into the room, say hello in the comments, and make sure that you share. Make sure that you like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Black Camera TV. Yes, lean back. And if you share, make sure you hashtag shared when you shared it. Share it into Facebook groups, share it into DMs, share it as your status, share it on a tweet, share it on a hill, share it on a river, wherever you are, whatever time of day it is. Make sure you get into this Revolutionary Book Chat. So land back. As you see, we coordinated today, but not just coordinated. It's not just a random outfit. This is our Black Hammer uniform. Yes, and because we are the Black Hammer Party, we have to show that militancy for the people, right? And not just in how we serve the people, but how we present ourselves. And so, yes, land back. If you are wondering why we look extra good today, that's the reason why. But yeah, no, land back. Why don't we introduce ourselves and then we'll tell you what book we're reading. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, land back, everybody. My name is Watakame. I represent the Coca and the Wirarica people of colonized Mexico, as well as the poor working class. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the chief of staff for our Ministry of People's Affairs office, where we work day in, day out to make sure that our people are prepared on how to survive the failures of colonialism when it comes to natural events, to different viruses, to different conditions that we are succumbed to through the colony.
Yes, land back. And I am Chief Oju, representing the nations of Africa and Boriken. I come from the working class with some petty blue contradictions. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the chief of agitation and propaganda, which is responsible for informing you about the revolution and in politically educating you. So Watakama is doing this because the book trap is an example of something from our agitation and propaganda office, where we were trying to make sure that we inform the people about their history, about the revolutionary history, about the revolutionary ancestors and their lives. Of course, what people know about their lives, but this is another chance for our people to get deeper into why their lives are the way they are, right? You always know the what, but sometimes you always ask the why. And so, we're here to fill in that blank for you as the Black Hammer Party.
That's right.
Yes, land back. And so what book are we reading, Watakame?
We are reading Open Veins of Latin America by Eduardo Galeano. Yep.
Yes, right. Open Veins of Latin America. If you haven't been following so far, because this is our third episode with this book, it is a book that goes deep into the history of colonial history of Turtle Island and Abiyala or Pachamama. What we hear now as the Americas under colonialism. And it shows like exactly just how much extraction there has been by like foreign powers like in Europe and United States and all these places that just drain the resources and drain the life of people, but also show us the amount of resistance against that exploitation. And we're seeing it, we're like learning about it in all these nations, these nations. And that's why I really so far like about this book is that you get to learn from every single place, from Panama to uh, Mexico to Argentina, all of them. And so if you haven't gotten to this book already, you need to.
Absolutely.
What website can they go to get the book at?
You can go to blackhammer.org/library to find not only this book, but endless amount of political education.
Yes, exactly. You could find it all there. And if you are like, man, I want to go to the library that's in person, well, you shouldn't, because there might be like Rona in there, and so you can get these books without having to risk any exposure out there.
That's
So
right.
that's what that site does, in addition to giving you good political education. So yeah, no, lay it back. But before we get into our actual reading, we want to make sure that we give a call to donate. All right, y'all. So make sure you donate. You could donate to Cash App BlackHammer.org. That is how we get the revolution going. We have to fund the revolution to keep it going, right? It requires resources. If everything that the enemy has done, to take fruit, to take metals from all over our lands, if that requires resources, why wouldn't revolution require resources? You don't just, when they say grassroots, you still gotta get the resources to make the grass grow. It's not like it doesn't just grow on its own out of sheer willpower or just love or hope. If we could win a revolution just on hope and love,
we would have won a long.
We would have won a long time ago, because we have endless amounts of that as colonized people, but we don't have endless amounts of actual resources because they've been taken from us.
Exactly, and if we learned anything the last two episodes, it's how the only reason that they got to colonize us so much is because they took our resources, right?
Yeah.
So it's taking back our own resources that's gonna get us free.
Yes.
So land back Colimote for the $5.
Oh snap! Okay.
Putting your money into your liberation. We love to see it.
Yes. Thank you, Colimote, for that. Thank you, Virgil, for sharing. I see that. Thank you for sharing. Yes, make sure you share. There's no reason that if you're already watching this on a phone or computer, you can't just click the share button and share it to 40 Facebook groups and just click through. I don't care if it's about pizza. Share it into your pizza Facebook group. If you're in a pizza Facebook group, there's a good chance you're over the age of 35. But, if you are in other groups, go ahead, share it. All right. But we're going to get into our book trap trivia so that, we can get right into this reading. All right. You want to read the question this time?
Yes, I read it every time.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
This is my part.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the nations of Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Panama were known as the blank kingdom. A, lime, B, orange, C, banana, or D, mango.
Ooh.
I feel like this one's gonna trip up a lot of people.
Yeah, of course, there's been a range of things that have been grown there, have been taken from there, but there's one crop that really tied all these places together, and one that really caused a lot of turmoil, and that it rained, it was supreme, and if you did your reading, you'd know exactly which one of these it was. And of course, all these things together can make a delicious smoothie. But that's not the issue here.
I don't know about lime and banana together.
I feel like if you had the other three and just a squeeze of lime, it would tie it all together.
I see.
You know what I mean? Like the orange and the mango, maybe?
I feel like take the banana out and then it's a good one.
Oh, okay.
It's more like citrusy.
That's true. And more like fresh.
Okay, we have one answer.
You have one answer. We have a C.
A C.
We'll keep on answering. Oh,
Virgil. Okay.
Virgil with a C as well. Okay, let's reveal that answer. Dun, 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 dun. Banana.
Banana. I even gave y'all a hint.
Yeah, I know, right? Take the banana out. Oh. Ren said, D, that's incorrect, Ren. That is incorrect. But you should correct yourself and learn more about the Banana Kingdom through this book chat. All right, lay back, y'all. And so also, besides having your comments and your likes and your shares, that you also have read that back. So any quote from the book that sticks out to you, right? Any quote from the book that sticks out to you,
Mhm.
that you unite with, you have questions about, that you feel like says a lot about that point in history, like any of those things. All right.
Mhm.
And we already they have people already dropping them. Okay,
Mhm.
all right, yeah. Keep on putting your read that backs into the comments. But we're gonna get into ours to start off with. All right.
Yes.
Okay. So I believe I'm first this time. Oh wait, yes, I'm first this
Oh,
time.
dang, that's new.
Yeah. All right. So this is on page 84, y'all, and it goes: the abundance of food in Palmares contrasted with its lack in coastal areas at the zenith of the sugar prosperity. The slaves who had won liberty defended it ably and bravely because they shared its fruits. Land in the black state was held in common and no money circulated. No slave rebellion in world history lasted as long as that in Palmares. Spartacus's rebellion, which shook the most important slave system of ancient times, lasted 18 months. For the final onslaught, the Portuguese crown mobilized the biggest army seen in Brazil until the colony became independent much later. No fewer than 10,000 people defended the last bastion of Palmares. The survivors were beheaded, thrown from precipices, or sold to merchants in Rio de Janeiro and Buenos Aires. I stopped it there because it just got really graphic.
Yeah.
Um, but no, land back. So, this is talking about Palmares, which was the region in Brazil in which a lot of the growing was happening, because they were like, okay, let's start clearing out forest up here and start like laying out more and more crops. um and because of that, there was a lot of enslaved Africans that were there,
Mhm.
right? Tons of enslaved Africans that were there, and they're like, no, f this, no, 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 right? And they were rebelling, and then there's the ones that rebelled and had fled more inland to Palmares, right? And these people in Brazil were called quilombos,
Mhm.
right? Which is like, you might know the word maroons, right? So they're in Brazil, they're called quilombos. And there was like it was a basically a free liberated city area
Mhm.
of like Africans who left the plantation,
Yeah.
right? Sounds similar to things like Hammer City and all
Love
that.
it.
um that's what this place was. And it's just amazing because like the they're saying the abundance of food in this liberated place
Mhm.
contrasted so much with the
Mhm.
lack of food that was where the plantations were,
Mhm.
right? Because all of what's the paradox about it is that on those plantations, a bunch of food was being grown. So why is it that they're hungrier on the plantation than the liberated part? It's because in the liberated part of Palmares, the people had control over the food.
That's
People
right.
had control of the resources. It was theirs. It was theirs to grow and theirs to divide. And and they're able to divide it without circulating money.
Mhm.
It wasn't like they needed currency. They
Mhm.
just said everyone should have food. So we're splitting it up. Whereas where the plantations were, the food never went to the enslaved Africans. It was going to the landowners and to the companies, right?
Mhm.
And so it's just, you saw how powerful that slave rebellion was, the longest lasting one.
Mhm.
And they needed 10,000 soldiers to defeat it. They're
Mhm.
like, like, oh no, you can't have this. And you know they lost in Palmares in the end. But there were still plenty of people who survived and were there and stood there. Like there's the quilombismo culture there to that day, to this day. And so like it's just like it's just like such a good like show of how, if you liberate yourself and get your own land and control your resources, you will live in abundance.
Mhm.
But on the plantation, on the colony, of course, of course it wasn't by choice, or whether it is by choice, you're gonna suffer. You're not gonna live in abundance. You're gonna be hungry. And there's like, and people are always afraid, like, oh, like, will I be fed in revolution? Will I starve in revolution? Like, I get all my food from the government, I give food stamps, all these things. It's like, no, you're starving because of the colony.
Mhm.
In liberation and in revolution, you won't starve anymore. or if you're hungry, it'll be for a little bit until we get everything back.
Mhm.
That's what it is. In revolution, you won't go hungry. And it's just like a historical example of that. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, no, land back, full unity with this. Read that back and stuff. Yeah, like it's a really good example of like what happens when we do have that dictatorship, right?
Hmm.
Which is our first principle of unity is that we deserve dictatorship over our land, lives, labor, and resources, right? And the people who did escape the plantation like took all of those back and created this like literal paradise in the middle of like this horrific like what do they call them, like food apartheids, right?
Hmm.
And like yeah, they people were growing a bunch of food on the plantations, but like you said, it wasn't to feed themselves; it was to feed their master, right? And to feed like powers outside of like their own communities, um, which is how they have us living
You're
all the
exactly
time.
right
Like
now.
that's plantation to this day. Like it doesn't
Hmm.
matter what your job is, you're working to feed
Feed
somebody
somebody
else.
else.
Like you're working to make somebody else rich. Like you're working to give someone else more.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, they sometimes not even, but they give you enough crumbs to show up the next day.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Exactly.
Right? And then like it's just that. And you know, like plantation, even if you do make big money, right? Like these petty boos want that. Like petty boos want to make the big money because then they'll never be hungry. Their family will never be hungry.
Yeah.
Whatever, right? But like those again, those are crumbs. Those are like things that are given so you come back. And even then, are you really fulfilled?
Yeah.
Like, does your life have purpose? Or does your life depend on that plantation anyway?
Yes.
Right? Because if you were to like true abundance is that you don't have to use your body or your labor
Yeah.
in order to just survive,
Yeah.
right? Because
Hmm.
even like in this situation, like we know that there are people like with different like physical or mental like abilities, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't a like a contingent for them being fed.
Hmm.
You know, like they didn't have to earn it because just being alive
Was enough to earn
was
it.
enough to earn freaking humanity, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
like in the plantation, again, no matter how much you make, like it's contingent on how much you produce
Forced
for
somebody.
somebody else.
Hmm.
And like that's never going to give you freedom. That's never
Nope.
going to give you happiness. That's never going to give you purpose. And like we see that even now, just being in the revolution, right?
Yes.
You know, like this is it, y'all. Like this is all you need, right? Is to fight for yourself and your people,
Hmm.
like to with your comrades, right? Like that
Yeah.
camaraderie, like it feeds your soul too. Like being amongst the
Mm.
people feeds your soul, not just your body, you
Yes.
know. And like that feeding of the soul is what keeps you going.
Hmm.
And like that's something that the plantation can never give you.
Nope. And we know it does. Like, you say you hate Mondays. Like, no, you hate the plantation. You hate colonialism. Like, it will never give you that. You know it. If you're watching there, you hate your job. There's no one out there who likes their job. The only people who like their jobs are the people who want to become the bosses that get fed by all the workers who are going hungry.
And even then, it will never be
And
you.
it will never be you. It will never be you. And the one that it does is becomes a Barack Hussein Obama, who then, in order to keep that position, has to murder even more people than the person they replaced.
Mhm.
Right? And so you don't want to be that person. If you do, then the revolution's got something for you too, right? But if you aren't trying to be that, if you don't like your job, if you're tired of that plantation, then you need to join the revolution and join Black Hammer, because Black Hammer is the one that's taking you and putting you with the people and putting your labor toward not just your own liberation, but the liberation of your entire people, of the entire world. Well, that sounds like a much, much better job to me than anything that the colony could offer.
Yep.
That it that gives you crumbs, that wears you ragged, that will literally break your back, right?
Break your spirit.
Break your spirit. Yeah, and the people who are more willing to do it immediately are the people who had nothing to lose, and in this case, enslaved Africans, because they weren't getting crumbs.
Exactly.
That's the definition of no crumbs. No choice. No, you're forced to do it. But then they realize, well, I got a choice, because it's either I do it or I say no, yes or no. There's no guessing.
Yeah, and it's no
Right?
different here.
It is no different
Like,
here.
because if you're not like here, if you don't participate willingly into the colony, into the plantation, you're driven to things that end up like make you
Yes.
end up in prison, which is forced labor
Which is
anyway.
yes,
It
exactly.
takes away your choice to participate. Like
Mhm.
you're forced right back into slavery. Like that was the whole contingency plan of that,
Mhm.
right? Like it
That's the whole 13th Amendment,
exactly.
right?
It was a loophole. It was like,
Mhm.
yeah, you can choose to still work for crumbs to break your back to do this day in day out, or to find your own other way, which we're going to make sure is illegal, and then force you to do it our way
Yep.
for literal pennies a month.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And then the share copying and like the latifundios, that's the other thing for pennies a month or to pay off a debt and all that
Mhm.
stuff. And even when you get into debt for a medical bill, that's again another form of being enslaved to work for these crumbs to
Mhm.
keep on paying somebody else,
Mhm.
right? You're always losing your resources in the colony, but in revolution, you can take those resources, keep them for their people, and distribute them out to your people. All right, and that's a way better way to live. Land back. Okay, so make sure when you come into the room, you share land back, shalom, land back QC. Yeah, make sure you share, and hashtag shared when you share it. Okay, and put it in your Facebook groups. You know, there's so many Facebook groups out there.
So many.
So many.
For
Just
so many things.
just so many things. Drop them in there, y'all. uh, okay, we'll do this. Read that back from Virgil, which is not one of yours, right?
No.
All right, cool. We always have to make sure, y'all, we always on the same page. All right. So Virgil says, Brazil, it's on page 86. Brazil abolished slavery in 1888, but it did not abolish the latifundio. And the same year, an eyewitness wrote from Ceará in the Northeast. The human cattle market was open as long as there was hunger, and there was no lack of buyers. Rare was the steamer in which large numbers of Ceará people were not shipped out. That's the story across all of the colonies,
What
you
we're
know.
literally just talking about.
Yeah, we're just talking about it. It's the exact same thing. Um, Brazil was the last country in the world to officially abolish slavery, officially, you know, on paper. 1888 is late compared to all the other ones that officially did it, because that's how much they relied on this system, you know. And but yeah, it didn't abolish the latifundio. It's like again, they want to keep this plantation going, no matter how it looks like. And of course, if you're hungry, that's why it says there, you know, the market was open as long as there was hunger, because people needed resources. But
Mhm.
just because they abolish slavery doesn't mean all of a sudden the people have resources.
Mhm.
You know, it's kind of like we on our homeless outreach today. We talked to a new brother that we met. Named Mo, who said, you know, it's one thing to get housing, but it's another thing when you still need food and bus passes and other resources, right? It's not like all of a sudden just because you get a crumb that you get the whole pie, you
Mhm.
know. So it's something that like they know, and they know that the enemy knows that, the colonizer knows
That's why
that,
they do
and
that.
that's why they do it, because they know you're gonna stay latched on to survive still. Mm-hmm.
Whew.
Yeah, cut the umbilical cord.
Yeah,
Whew.
like
Yeah.
it's like specifically housing, at least here in Chicago, right? They do that big push, right? Oh, like everyone gets housing.
Yeah.
But that's literally it. And even on the city website, it'll be like, but we don't provide lasting
Yo.
resources. Like if you need help getting out of other situations like substance abuse, or
Mhm.
literally like if you need food, that's on you to figure out. We give you a house.
Yeah.
And like it's because they know that that will keep them in that same loop,
Yeah.
right? And that's where we come in.
Exactly. That's where we come in, because when like those people who get that housing end up a lot of times back on the street because it wasn't sustainable enough to keep the housing, then who's going to be there for them? The city that's going to just put them back into that cycle? No, Black Hammer's here to pull them out of the cycle and put people into the revolution instead.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, land back. Yes, Calibri, the colony sucks the life out of you. It does, and we putting it back in through a revolutionary breath back into people. That was a little too Disney-esque.
That was very Disney.
Or Pokemon the movie where Pikachu
Oh
cries.
no, please.
Yes, but we're doing that, but with political education,
That's
that's what it is. All right, lay back. Let's get to our next. Read that back, and it's what's coming.
is it?
Is it? What page is it on?
No, that's
Oh
yours.
my god, I'm two in a row.
Because mine are later.
Oh, okay. All right, y'all. So it's on page 93, and it goes, In barely 3 years, from 1959 to 1961, to give up one example, the international price of the Brazilian cacao bean fell by one third. Since then, the tendency to rise has opened the door of hope a crack, but the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America, ECLA, predicts a short life for the upward curve. To keep their chocolate cheap, the big cacao consumers, the United States, Britain, West Germany, Holland, France, stimulate competition between African cacao and cacao from Brazil and Ecuador. Controlling prices as they do, these nations bring on periods of depression, which put cacao workers back on the road. The unemployed look for trees to sleep under and green bananas to fool their stomachs. One product they certainly don't eat is the fine chocolate that Brazil actually imports from France and Switzerland. Chocolate costs more and more, cacao less and less. Between 1950 and 1960, Ecuador's cacao sales rose more than 30% in volume, but only 15% in value. The remaining 15% was a gift from Ecuador to those rich countries, which in the same period sent it their industrial products at escalating prices. Ecuador's economy depends on the sale of bananas, coffee, and cacao, three food products highly subject to price fluctuations. According to official data, 7 of every 10 Ecuadorians suffer from basic malnutrition, and the country has one of the highest death rates in the world.
Jeez.
Land back, jeez. And I know, and this might be still in 1976. I think when he wrote this book, 1973. We ain't that far from 1973 right now. That's not that long ago. Um, and so yeah, no, I wanted to bring up this read that back because it shows how it shows like a divisionism that it's kind of invisible, sometimes, right? Is that of course like there's the divisionism between like colonized people when we're actually with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also like the what propaganda does to like put us against each other. But I think it's interesting how like how these colonizing countries, like Holland, France, and all of them, um, create competition between the industries of these colonized places, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the workers are going through the same thing, but it's just, it's interesting because it's like oh, like the work is getting harder, the work is getting more backbreaking, and like part of it being because they're creating divisionism between these sectors, and so like the petty bourgeois of those nations are like forcing the workers to work harder, and it's just like really sickening to see how like you know how like colonized petty blue people could buy into that divisionism and then transfer that onto the people to make them like work even harder and more like backbreaking work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like yeah, it's just like it's just interesting to see how them doing that shows not just how they can control a colony like, on the colony, but also putting colonies against each other, and
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily as colonized nations, like not because oh I'm this nation and you're this nation, but through like our resources, like
Mm-hmm.
compete, making us like our resources compete.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like no one's left out of colonialism. Like the workers, the resources from the earth, like no one's left out of that. And they'll make us compete. They'll make the resources of the earth compete,
Mm-hmm.
and then who loses out in the end? Colonized people. 7 out of every 10 Ecuadorians being in malnutrition. It makes no sense when they are producing bananas, coffee, and cacao. Like there's plenty of nutritious things in that can be done. So it's just that's what I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
It kind of relates to what we were talking to before. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm back. Yeah, I think that 7 out of 10 is wild.
Yeah.
I like that 70%. Like it, and it's not only from like little how much they work or how little they get paid, but like you were saying, right? Like the earth is forced into this competition, right? And because like they overproduce the crops that make them the most money.
Yeah.
Right? Like Ecuador is in an amazing place to grow like so many diverse foods.
Yeah.
Right? But because not all of the foods make them money and it's cheaper to then like import them from somewhere else, they use most of their land for the ones that make them the most money, right?
Yeah.
And it's the cycle where now colonized people in other countries where they are importing the other foods
Yeah.
are now also forced into like that backbreaking because that's the food that makes them the most money.
Yeah.
Like it just
Yeah. To the point where they're importing more of the thing that they make. Like you're
Exactly.
like, oh, oh, we make bananas, but because of like the overproduction, or like the how expensive ours are to put out there, then we have to import bananas from somewhere else to make them cheaper for us.
Yeah,
And
or
it,
and not only that, but like earlier in the book and stuff, or even in this section, before they talk about like what products or what crops make the most money, they talk about everything that used to grow
yeah,
there,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because it's what the people needed,
Hmm.
right? So they would grow the fruits,
Yeah,
the vegetables. So
potatoes.
yeah, exactly. They grew everything they needed because they were feeding themselves,
Yeah.
just like only growing what they needed. And then because of the the monoculturing, right, of like such big pieces of land, they stopped growing everything that the people needed,
Yeah.
because the rich could afford to import it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which yeah.
And like it was like a real dark story with the Colombian. Not, well, it's all dark, but the Colombian coffee, and like that whole
Oh,
like
yeah.
that one year where they said they burned like 70,000 sacks of coffee, because it was oversaturated. Like there was too much for
Which
the
like
market.
that happened here with the potatoes, no?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That happened here with the potatoes, and they said that was 5 harvests worth of work.
Which is like what the
What?
fuck?
And like imagine just like you don't have to imagine this. Think about the poorest people of our society, the poorest people of our world, doing backbreaking work to grow coffee, and coffee kills so much. Coffee is one of the most like killing crops you can do. And so they have to, take all those forests out, plant all this coffee, so they can't grow any other food for themselves. So they're starving, growing this plant for 5 harvests, nearly dying doing it, and then someone's like, "There's too much, just burn it." That's the state of waste, and just evilness. It's just evil. It's just pure evil. And if things like this don't wake you up to the evil of the world, and plus your own life, I don't even know.
Yeah.
But it's just that the colony knows nothing but waste and excess waste, Virgil. Yeah, you're right.
And like that's a theme that is so common in everyday life.
Yeah.
Like it, maybe not to the extent of 5 harvest worths of crops, but most people I know have worked in the food industry before, right? And like it's I feel like mainly common knowledge that any food you don't sell in a day, you throw it away, like straight into the trash. And that and it's no different than this, right?
Yeah.
And like that's insane. That's really really insane, because like I've worked in a couple of restaurants, and um like I grew up poor, working class, right? And it was just crazy.
Yeah.
It was just, and how nonchalant everyone else is about it. Yeah, just throw it away. And like, yeah, if you work here, you can take it home. Like you can take the leftovers home or whatever. But it was like, how many people could that feed? And it just going straight into the trash, straight into the dumpster for no reason.
Yeah.
Like I remember on one of our slow days, it was 15 pounds of chicken.
Wow.
15 pounds of chicken that like I had grilled up that day, And because it was a slow day, it was like a blizzard or something.
Yeah.
And we had to just throw it away. Because, our restaurant prides itself and do like daily fresh chicken or whatever.
Yeah, and they even make laws for the restaurants to stop them from even giving them.
You can't give it away because it's like a health code or whatever. And it's
yeah, and like they do dumpster diving, right? But they like the liberals, the Ku Klux communist liberals, those white liberals, had taken like these things around waste and just made them like generic environmental problems that are disconnected from colonialism and like labor and like people. Like people like have to raise those chickens. People have to pick those grapes. People have to grow those tomatoes. Like and people just like this was what liberals just try to make it about like being like moral and with your food and being thoughtful and like not being wasteful for the environment. It's like, no, it's not just for the environment, it's for the earth and our people and animals who are constantly being killed by the system that creates the waste, right? That deems us as waste very often as humans, right? So yeah, no, it's a lot.
It is a lot.
And I think about yeah, like most colonized people, like really most colonized people, even if they aren't like poor working class now, like your ancestors at some point were working one of these crops that they did this to. Like this happened to all of our colonized ancestors.
Mhm.
You know, like some recent, more recent for some of us than others, because like I was talking about the comment I said it last week about the sugar for my grandma, but my grandpa's side was coffee. There were coffee people, you know, in the mountains of Borinquen, and that's how all of our colonized families like came into being, was doing this labor for these people invading our lands.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
literally, and I think that's important to internalize,
yeah,
because we are here because of the ones who survived.
yes,
Like
exactly.
it's not that, oh yeah, this happened to some people, blah 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 blah. Like we are literally the descendants of the people who made it through
Exactly.
all of this stuff.
Hmm.
And some of the people that didn't, right? But like they made it long enough to like for us to be
For us to be
here.
here,
And
exactly.
like that is their victory, right?
Hmm.
Or at least we choose to make it that.
Hmm.
And like that is the choice that we all have to make, right? Because it's not just about like, or at least for me, right? Like revolution is not just about using my life for the benefit of the masses, but also to honor my ancestors,
Yes.
like to
Hmm.
honor the people before me, right? Like it's
Hmm.
so much bigger than, and even if it wasn't, right, like if serving the masses is enough,
Hmm.
that's, but like internalizing that, like these are not just stories in a book,
Yeah.
like they're not disconnected, like they're not just random, what's the word, anecdotes,
Yeah. Hmm.
like they're,
It's real life.
yeah. And like this section was really graphic.
It was. Hmm.
Was really graphic, and it is important to internalize that, because that's another thing liberals do, right? They try to romanticize slavery, they try
Yeah.
to romanticize colonialism by separating it into different things, right? They don't even like see colonialism as a whole,
Hmm.
but like it was not cute.
Hmm.
The struggle, like yeah, it was powerful, but that it was awful
Yes.
and disgusting,
Hmm.
and all of the like, and that's things that like we don't get to run away from
No.
because our people didn't.
Hmm. Oof. Oof. Okay. That was a quote. That was a quote. I took that. I was like, hold on. Process that. Yes. Exactly. Yeah, we can't run away from it because our people couldn't have. Right. And if there's anything that they would have run toward, it's revolution. If there's anything they would have run toward, it was freedom.
And they did.
And they did. And so we're picking up the torch and continuing the run on. Right. We're taking like the totem too. Moving on, so many things. There's like a lot of
So many
conversations. Yeah,
analogies.
you know, so many. But yeah, that's what we're doing as revolutionaries of today, right? Taking the totems not just from my ancestors, but also our revolutionary ancestors, like the Black Panther Party, like Marcus Garvey, the UNIA. You know, so yeah, land back. All right, let's go into our next read that back. Make sure you drop your read that backs in the comments, y'all.
Some better be
This one should be yours. If I had three in a row, it'd be wild.
mine. So,
Liberal, yeah, it's yours.
okay. Speaking of, it's on page 103 of the book,
Mhm.
about halfway down. Sorry. Liberal Party sages shut themselves in their homes, never abandoning their good manners and gentlemanly tone of their manifestos, or went into exile abroad. It was a war of incredible cruelty, and it became worse as it went on. Feeding the lust for vengeance, new ways of killing came into vogue. Oh yeah, this gets graphic. So,
Yeah.
the corte corbata, for example, left the tongue hanging from the neck. Rape, arson, and plunder went on and on. People were quartered or burned alive, skinned or slowly cut into pieces. Troops razed villages and plantations, and rivers ran red with blood. Bandits spared lives in exchange for tribute and money or loads of coffee, and the repressive forces expelled and pursued innumerable families who fled to seek refuge in the mountains. Women gave birth in the woods. The first guerrilla leaders, determined to take revenge but without clear political vision, took to destroying for destruction's sake, letting off blood and steam without purpose. The names adopted by the protagonists of violence, Gorilla, Evil Shadow, the Condor, Redskin, the Vampire, Blackbird, Terror of the Plains, hardly suggest a revolutionary epic, yet the scent of social rebellion was in the couplets sung by their followers. I am just a campesino. I didn't start the fight. But if they come asking for trouble, they'll get what's coming to them.
Ooh. There's so much there, but I had to take it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm back. No, I unite with that. It is a lot. It's a lot. Like not only in the way that they describe barely.
Yeah,
The torture and the violence, right? But first of all, the very beginning part, right? It was the liberal people who didn't abandon like their social rules, right? Because they didn't want to get their hands dirty, right? And then I do like how it lays out the criticism, right? Where it says the first guerrilla leaders determined to take revenge, but without a clear political vision, took to destroying for destruction's sake, letting off blood and steam without purpose. That's what we call adventurism or anarchism, right? It can be both. When you're just like doing things for the sake of doing things without a plan of action.
Exactly.
And especially now in this time, whatever, we have to be really careful about our moves, right? And we do not endorse adventurism. We do not endorse anarchism because it doesn't get us anywhere, as we've seen time and time again, right? And it really is just violence for violence sake, and which is understandable. Like, don't get me wrong, wanting to cause a ruckus, wanting to like break stuff, fight people, whatever, is absolutely understandable when you've suffered this.
Yeah.
Right? But we have to be politically smart about it, right?
Yeah.
And like that's what like when we learn like in Art of War, like don't let your emotions determine your actions. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, and don't sell out long-term goal for short-term interest. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like the long-term goal is obviously revolution, liberation, right? And just because you're really mad today or someone really pissed you off, like don't put that long-term goal at stake for making yourself feel good right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I do like that part. And that's another thing that like liberals don't understand, because liberals will, like as we've seen, start burning cities, start breaking stores, like looting, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
In the name of like anger and revolution, but like they don't know the first thing about it.
Yeah.
Right? So I do like that part, and like obviously the little song, right? The couplet.
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
where it says, "I'm just a campesino." I love that, because I think that's a sentiment that's carried through generations.
Yeah.
Right, and like we say it all the time too, and it's like we don't want violence, we don't want war, but if that's what it takes, then we're gonna do it and we're gonna win.
Yes.
And like that's something that like my dad taught me too, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. It's like don't hit first.
Yeah.
Don't be the first one to throw a punch, but you better be the last one. And like that's something that like has been ingrained in my brain for as long as I can remember. And I think most colonized people, we don't want violence.
No.
We didn't choose this. Like we were subjected to this violence of colonialism, and they showed us.
Yeah, they showed us how it got done. And so, of course, like they can get what's coming to them in that way, right?
Exactly.
And Malcolm X even said it too, right? Like he didn't believe in violence for violence sake, but he believed in self-defense.
And self-defense, exactly. That's what it is. Like we're y'all could just quit and like give us back our stuff, But if punches need to be thrown, punches will be thrown, and you better believe we're gonna come prepared.
Yeah, metaphorical punches.
Hypothetically.
Yes.
Hypothetically speaking.
Yes, like that old boxing game from the 80s. There was like an outline of punch, metaphorical electronic punches. But yeah, no, I'd like that when you said I'm just a campesino, like how that's across colonized nations too. Whether it's in Boriken it's Hibaro. That's the Hibaro is the peasant. So campesino's like peasant, like country person. If you don't know. And so yeah, like it's Hibaro and Boriken, and like even in non-Spanish colonized places, there's always like that peasant, that poor person who's like the symbol of like resistance, and the symbol of like the perseverance of spirit in that country. Like in Jamaica, it was like Queen Nani of the Maroons. Like the Maroons were led by this older like enslaved African named Nani, and she's become such a big symbol that she's even on the money now, and they're like,
Mhm.
"Give me 100." This cab ride's like, "It's 100 nannies." Like, like that's
Mhm.
how big of a symbol she is. And like all these, yeah, the campesino is such a huge symbol of just like the like the I am just someone who doesn't have anything besides like the clothes on my back.
Literally.
But uh, I will get, I'll get vengeance for my people if they're done wrong.
And I
Right?
think like that's also really telling of the fact that it is the poor working class that is the leadership.
Yep, exactly.
Right? Because campesinos, as in a society, like you said, are looked down on.
Yes.
Right? But even throughout generations and through our revolutionary history, like they are the leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're so looked down on. Like I remember, again, my parents. Um, my my dad was a proud somos campesinos. Like your grandparents, like oh, it's like somos campesinos, and my mom, who she wanted that like to work her way out of it type thing,
Mhm.
would always be like, no, you're not. Just don't tell people. So it went from like, no, you're not, to like, don't tell people.
Yeah.
And like it really is like that,
Yeah, it
because
is.
and it, yeah, it is beautiful. Like
Mhm.
just the first sentence and the last, right?
Yeah.
I'm just a campesino, and they'll get what's coming to them,
Yeah.
because campesinos are relentless.
Mhm.
They get the job done no matter what.
Yes. You get the job done no matter what. And yeah. And something just real quick also about this, read that back. Just also reading about Colombia. I have not read too much about Colombia in its history, but like Colombia goes through it. It really
Yeah.
does. Because it seems like a lot of revolutionary fervor without like the
Guidance.
guidance and the leadership.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's what it feels like here. And like also that's also this example, this read that back shows the importance of leadership.
Mhm.
Because of course you can have political guidance, but it doesn't just come from the sky. It comes from a leader,
Like
right?
democratic centralism.
Yeah, exactly. It comes from a leader and democratic centralism. And so, like these protagonists of violence, like we could, guerrilla leadership, we could say, oh, they're all horrible people, like they're just wrong or something. But maybe they just needed that leader that can guide them politically
Mhm.
to show like where their anger should go toward and how and when, right?
Yeah, and like that. Yeah, it definitely makes me want to read up a lot on. I mean, yeah, reading on Colombia, like even that little section was yeah.
Yeah.
But like that's also something that's been said about other revolutionary leaders. Like
Yeah.
Emiliano Zapata was coined like this rebel, whatever,
Mhm.
which is just first of all, wrong.
Yeah.
So rude. Like, but he was portrayed as that, just an anarchist, right?
Yeah.
And like
Mhm.
without leadership, and just like all of these guerrillas, whatever. It's disrespectful, honestly.
Mhm.
But it does make me want to read more into like who the
The
actual people were,
leaders, yeah, and who the people were exactly, because and I saw this in the book. It wasn't 70,000 sacks of coffee. It was 78 million sacks of coffee. But like people who lose that much, like it of course it always does something to you. Colonialism already does something to you, but then it's those moments that just make it click that you
Mhm.
know who your enemy is.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I want to read up on them more too, and we will in a future book chat probably. The land back. Oh, we have another read that back. It's on page 95 from Colibri. We'll read it. Let's see. It says the U.S. dumping of cotton. Oh yeah, I remember this. The U.S. dumping of cotton has not affected the imperial hold of a U.S. firm, Anderson Clayton, over this product in Latin America, or interfered with U.S. purchases through the firm of Mexico Cotton for resale to other countries. World trade of Latin American cotton nevertheless remains lively thanks to its extremely low production costs. Even reality concealing official figures portray the wretched standards of pay for actual work, which I remember they were saying was like 70 cents or something to
I had this one highlighted
oh yeah,
too.
highlighted, yeah, it's like yeah, was it 50, yeah, 150 a day.
In Mexico,
Yeah.
$10 a month in Guatemala.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, and it was also interesting to see that, and like Galliano, what I love about him is that he connects all the colonized places, all colonized peoples. Like he talks about like the history of how it shifted from there to the United States, right, the
Mhm.
South. became the world, cotton center, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like when the United States all of a sudden had cotton, of course they have so much of it. It's just like the coffee in the where they have to figure out the prices, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, and then end up with a bunch of it, and like this dumping, right? Um, this dumping, like in the end, it's only one person still controlling it, still the colonizer country controlling it. Whether or not they're making a little bit, whether or not they're making a lot,
Mm-hmm.
in the end, it's not like, oh, they're super poor. The companies are doing really badly. All of a sudden, they're gonna leave. No, they hold on to it. They might just pass it along.
Mm-hmm.
um,
That's right.
yeah, and that's what. Yeah, that's the one thing about these. You learn a lot in this section about these industries and how they work, and it looks like whatever they did whatever they had to do to hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, land back. All right, all right. Keep on sharing, y'all. Keep on sharing. We're gonna go into our next read that back. I believe it. Is it yours?
Mine again?
Okay.
Yeah. 2212 or whatever the pattern. I said it wrong. It's on page 108. The top part. U.S. concerns took over lands, customs, houses, treasuries, and governments. Marines landed here, there, and everywhere to, quote, protect the lives and interests of U.S. citizens. The same holy water formula that would be used to deodorize the Dominican Republic crime in 1965. General Smedley,
Smedley.
I don't care. D. Butler, who headed many of the expeditions, indicated the sort of merchandise that was wrapped inside the flag when he wrote in 1935 of his own experience. Quote, I spent 33 years and 4 months in active service as a member of our country's most agile military force, the Marine Corps. I served in all commissioned ranks from second lieutenant to major general, and during that period, I spent most of my time being a high class muscle man for big business, for Wall Street, and for the bankers. In short, I was a bracketeer for capitalism. Thus, I helped make Mexico and especially Tampico safe for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for National City Bank to collect revenues in. I helped purify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown Brothers in 1909 through 1912. I brought light to the Dominican Republic for American sugar interests in 1916. I helped to make Honduras right for American fruit companies in 1903.
Ooh, that was a tell-all quote he gave there.
I know. Thanks, Medley.
Thanks, Smedley Butler. Smedley D. Butler.
No, God, I hope he got roasted. No, yeah, land back. Yeah, they street that back. I just, to me, you know, a lot of the times people try to separate like business from the military, right? They try to say like those are the two sides of a country,
Yeah.
right? In this case, America, right? Like, oh yeah, it's the business people and then government, and they're separate. No, they're not, because the government wants to make money for the country, and the way they do that is through businesses. And I mean, technically, he's right. He did go to serve, to protect the interests of U.S. citizens of the U.S.
Yeah.
So we've seen time and time again through many elections that they don't care about the interests of the citizens, or something like that, whatever. But yeah, like I did just want to highlight that part, right? Like they are completely intertwined.
Yeah.
They are the same force. It is the same people in charge of both things.
Yeah.
Because it is the same people who benefit from strong businesses, from strong military. Like you said, they hire out military people to be, like, basically was a bracketeer for capitalism, right? It's what he calls himself. And like this is one person in a giant military organization. Like he's not the only one.
Yeah.
And it just, a lot of, again, just people like to separate the two, and I don't understand why. I don't understand why, because capitalism and colonialism, like, they work as one machine.
Yes.
They are intertwined, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you study war, a lot of white people love studying war. If you study war and actually look at the reasons for war, it's always about resources. It's always about resources. And so that, of course, they're intertwined, because these wars and these military expeditions or whatever are fought to secure land for resources, or to secure the theft of a resource that's already there. And so, just like you said, I help make Honduras right for American fruit companies. What does it mean to make it right? It means to, take down anything that is resisting the theft of that land. And so the military, that's what it was doing. It's been doing, right? Is protecting those interests by making the land right for all these companies and for all these people who are trying to steal our resources.
Yeah, like a recent example was in Bolivia,
Mm-hmm.
where like Elon Musk, like, and I'm not.
This is big newspaper
Mofo
stuff.
quoted it, like
Yeah.
tweeted it out.
Mhm.
Like Elon Musk tried to like have a coup in Bolivia for the lithium, right?
Mhm.
For the batteries for his shitty ass cars. Where like he wanted to organize and like got the backing of the government
Yep.
to go into Bolivia to force them to make a deal with him for the lithium.
Mhm.
And by force, it was like literally like force,
Yeah.
physically force them to make a deal or to just give up the land, so that they could like have their workers like basically have a plantation there, right,
Yeah.
for the resources. um like this was what, a couple years ago.
This.
No, the Bolivia thing.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
It was like during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And like he tweeted, he was like, I'm a coup whoever I want to coup or
Yeah.
whatever.
Jeez.
Like literally,
It's all
like,
written out for y'all.
like tweeted it out. Bolivia said psych and kicked his ass. And then Viva Bolivia for real, because that was that like I think that happened a year ago because I had just joined the org when I read about it.
Okay.
So a little over a year ago.
Yeah, and that's when the election stuff was happening.
Uh-huh.
At that time, same time
Yeah.
too.
And like you got like the U.S. backing to have a coup in Bolivia so that they could have a leader that would like work with the U.S. to get lithium deals.
Exactly, and that's what we call a neo-colonial sellout. All right.
Who lost because the people rose up. The people rose up and they like elected an indigenous person who like was against all of that and has like ended all anyway.
Exactly. No,
the people of Bolivia won.
Yes.
Yeah, and like if you look at what's happened since then in like Central and South America, like that first fight in Bolivia has led to the fights of like all the other countries that we've seen, right? Like Venezuela and Peru and like all of these other places that are now also standing up and like choosing. The people are choosing who they want to lead them.
Yeah, exactly.
And so yeah. And anyway.
Yeah, no, it's always a domino effect like
exactly.
that. And then real quick too, another thing that this reminded me of was, did you just watch Our Generation, the Australian documentary?
No.
Oh yeah, we get it's real good. It talks about this community of it talks about Indigenous Australians in general, but there's a certain community of Indigenous Australians in like the northeast of the continent that are on land very valuable for like uranium mining. And one of the things that they try to do is that they try to create, it might be the military, but it's also the police force and like the government system, like the social care system, right? And so what they did was they tried to pretend like the social work system of the Australia tried to pretend that community had a tendency for like child sexual assault.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like they were trying. So like they were saying like, oh, it's like immoral and stuff. This is like the mid 2000s.
Which is real bold of Australia. If you know the history of the of the Aboriginal children, that's bold. That's bold.
Completely bold. And they try to do it through like the social work system,
They're the ones who kidnapped thousands of children from indigenous communities. Anyways,
and so no, exactly. The hypocrisy is already there. And so because of that, they would put signs up that said like no pornography, no, like all these rules, and would send more police there, right? And through this, like people were like being pushed out and like arrested for like not doing nothing. Like the community was not doing anything, y'all. Like nothing was happening, right? But like they used it as a means to make the land right, to make the land right for this uranium mining. That's what it means to make the land right. Is to for them, for the colonizers, by whatever means necessary to get those people off that land, or to get the people resistant to the stealing off that land, right? And so it's across the world they do this across the world, and it goes from the military to the police force to the social workers to every single part of the system
Mhm.
is working for that same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yes, land back.
Tell them.
Uh, my last read that back is actually right after yours. This
I
one right
do
here.
3 in a row,
What?
or yours is next.
I
Oh,
is
it's
mine
right
next?
next.
Yeah, it's right after
I
yours.
see.
Because we gotta talk about these fruit companies.
Yes, we do.
So it says here the Quran. This is on page 108 stuff. The Quran mentions the banana among the trees of paradise, but the bananization of Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, and Ecuador suggests that it is a tree of hell. United Fruit became owner of the biggest latifundio in Colombia when a big strike broke out on the Atlantic coast in 1928. Banana workers were mowed down with bullets in front of a railroad station. The forces of public order are authorized to punish with the aid of appropriate weapons, it was officially decreed, and no further decree was necessary to wipe the massacre from official memory. Miguel Angel Asturias described the process of Central American conquest and plunder in his novel The Green Pope, about Minor Keith, the uncrowned king of the region, great white father, united fruit, devourer of nations. The book says, we have docks, railroads, land, buildings, and water. The dollar circulates, English is spoken, and they fly our flag. Chicago cannot help but feel proud of that son who went off with a brace of pistols and returned to demand his position among the meat emperors, the railroad kings, the copper kings, the chewing gum kings. In the 42nd parallel, John Dos Passos traced the dazzling career of Keith in United Fruit. In Europe and the United States, people had started to eat bananas, so they cut down the jungles to Central America to plant bananas and built railroads to haul the bananas. And every year, more steamboats of the Great White Fleet steamed north loaded with bananas. And that is the history of the American Empire in the Caribbean and the Panama Canal and the future Nicaragua Canal and the Marines and the battleships and the bayonets. Land back. So, if you don't know, United Fruit Company still exists today. This is the same fruit company as Dole. Dole Fruit Company. Dole makes your pineapples. Dole is a major fruit.
Everything.
Everything you can get any kind of fruit thing from Dole. It's the same company as United Fruit, and United Fruit was notorious for being one of the most exploitative, violent companies to exist in a colony. Right? And this isn't just like a government being violent. This is a company being violent. They were known for like murdering countless people in the process of maintaining this fruit empire. Um, and this really picked up in the 20th century when people in the United States especially were like getting like, oh, this is a new fruit, like and like getting and putting this these foods on people's tables and creating more demand. And like this king, this white father of United Fruit, it's like demand his position among the meat emperors, the railroad kings, the copper kings, the chewing gum kings. It's uh, they are trying to show how basically no matter what a colonizer is coming, like where they're coming from, they want to take the resources of something. And I think that's important because sometimes they think they won't touch this or they won't touch this, they'll touch it all. They'll take it all. And I think that's important to remember, y'all, because if you think like, oh, where I am is safe, like I barely see any white people, I barely see any colonizer, I barely or like there's nothing on my land. Well, maybe you are on your land, you are the resource. And that's what you have to remember, that at any moment, they can come and try to take what's ours.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be prepared to defend yourself from getting that taken from you, because clearly, as you can see here, the whole jungles of Central America were cut down to make bananas. Whole jungles of a whole chunk of a continent, y'all. That's that's how much they're willing to do. And what's wild, another thing is bananas have been so saturated in that land that when you do monoculture, that also creates diseases for oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it creates diseases. It creates diseases for plants. And because of that, bananas are like dying in a lot of Central America.
Mm-hmm.
So you know where they're growing them now? They're growing them in India. India is like one of the biggest producers of bananas now. And in India, they're what they're upset about is they already had bananas.
Mm-hmm.
They had their own kind of bananas. But now people are like, because now they're like, oh no, like we don't barely eat those bananas we used to have anymore. Because now we got to grow the bananas Americans like because they can't grow them anymore in Central America. And so now they have these like weird, bigger, sweeter bananas when they're used to like these less sweet, tinier bananas.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's happening now over there? Banana disease because they're growing so many bananas.
So,
Yeah, go ahead, talk about it. You were like, ooh.
So I actually just went into this like research hole
Ooh.
about banana plagues. I know. It was like literally 2 days ago. And I don't remember the years. That was always my worst. I don't remember the
The
timeline.
time.
But yes.
Go ahead.
So even the bananas that we have now, I
Mhm.
forget their name. Whatever. If I had known,
Americanus banana
if I was
nanas.
gonna talk about it, I would have written stuff down,
Yeah.
taking notes and stuff. But no, like so they were talking about the reason that banana flavored stuff doesn't taste like bananas
Mhm.
is because they taste like the original bananas.
What?
Because they made the artificial stuff based off of a different kind of banana that also had a plague, and they all died, and then they had to like find / genetically modify the bananas we have now
to taste something
to
like
taste. It's just a different kind of banana.
Yeah.
And these ones are actually like they produce more because they stay green longer after harvest. So like before you had to like produce them and eat them quickly or else they would go bad. But yeah, this is like the fourth banana plague in like the like recorded history or whatever.
Oh my god.
Which I'm just like maybe we're not supposed to eat bananas like that.
Yeah.
Like maybe.
Hashtag leave bananas alone.
Like,
all right, y'all.
like yeah, and like it's that same type of stuff where like the entire tree, not only the tree is dying, but it kills the soil.
Yes,
it kills the soil and makes it like completely infertile. And like and so they like with the monoculture thing. That's definitely part of it, but they also try to plant it like because they're like really trying hard to keep bananas alive.
Yeah. They make a lot of money.
Exactly. But they tried like in small like whatever to plant them with other things that are more like natural or like how they found them. So like more like original and stuff. But it's still not working.
Yeah.
It's still not working. And so I'm just, you know.
Yeah, no, it's like there's so many crops that have been affected by that kind of same system where it dies and then they have to modify it. They have to modify it so that it becomes more marketable. Y'all should look up an image of an original watermelon. That's what y'all should do. An original watermelon, literally, when you cut it, had like swirls. It was like swirly inside. Y'all, that's a completely different looking fruit. What are they selling to us today? I don't know. It ain't a watermelon, apparently. All right. I don't know.
That doesn't mean we're 100% against GMOs.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean that.
Because, you know, like China has like modified rice.
Oh, yes.
To be more high yielding and nutritious.
Yes.
There are ways to do it that is not like for profit and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
and making the plant like like killing you, you know, or modifying you.
Yeah, there's a story of some guy who was allergic to fish and died from eating a tomato. Because they put fish DNA into the tomato so that it would survive in the cold.
What?
Sorry, one of my college papers was on GMOs, so we're not.
I gotta talk to you about that. That's so interesting. We can
move on.
But like, it's all related, y'all, because it's like you see what they do to our land and to our to the food from our land, and in the end, it just kills it all, and it's making all of us go hungry.
Exactly, and like another thing, right? Like they wanted to profit off of the tomatoes or whatever, right? So they passed these laws to where they don't have to even tell you what they're doing to the crops.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah.
Like because like again, this guy like ate a tomato, right? But it had fish DNA, and it's not like the law to like tell people what kind of stuff. So you will just randomly die because some fruit or whatever was genetically modified to something you're allergic to.
Oh my gosh!
So that it would survive during the frost and during the winter, so they could grow them for longer. You know, and like I'm not surprised that the Well, I'm surprised that it's not happening more.
Yeah.
And stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that makes me want to just grow my own food and farm my own food.
Oh God.
Where could I do that? I could do that in the revolution with Black Hammer.
That's right.
We are having a farming initiative because of things like this and because of the crisis of colonialism where food is barely on the shelves right now.
Mm-hmm.
Land back. All right, we're going to get to our last Read That Back, I believe.
Yes.
All right, what page is it on?
It is on page 110 through 111.
All right.
All right, it's right at the bottom.
Okay.
The epic of Augusto Cesar Sandino stirred the world. The long struggle in Nicaragua's guerrilla leader was rooted in the angry peasants' demand for land. His small, ragged army fought for some years against 12,000 U.S. invaders and the National Guard. What?
Sardine?
Sorry, yeah. Sardine tins filled with stones.
Sardine.
I lost my place in life. Sardine tins filled with stones served as grenades. Springfield rifles were stolen from the enemy. And there were plenty of machetes. The flag flew from any handy stick, and the peasants moved through mountain thickets wearing strips of hide called huaraches instead of boots. The guerrilla sang to the tune of Ararita. In Nicaragua, gentlemen, the mouse kills the cat. Neither the Marines' firepower nor the bombs dropped from the plains sufficed to crush the rebels of Las Segovias, nor did the calumny, spread worldwide by Associated Press and United Press International, whose Nicaraguan correspondents were two North Americans who controlled the country's customs houses. In 1932, Sandino had the
presentiment?
Yeah. Presentiment, I won't live very long. Land back. Yeah, this part, it was just honestly like oddly hopeful for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it talks about like this small group of people fought for years.
Yeah.
Right, against like US military.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The National Guard, if you ask anyone, is the weakest one. Literally ask the National Guard.
Especially sent to another country.
They can't do anything here.
Yeah.
Anyways. But yeah, like that in itself, right, and where it talks about like neither the Marines' firepower nor the bombs dropped on the planes from planes sufficed to crush the rebels, right? Because it was like, to me, that speaks to their faith in not only what they were doing, but in each other, right? Because like when you have that conviction of fighting for your people, fighting for your land, fighting for liberation, like, not to say it's easy and like every struggle is like no struggle at all anymore, right? But that faith and that love and that conviction will carry you through, right? It will carry you through to say, yeah, maybe there's just a handful of us and we're fighting the biggest military in the world, but we're fighting for a good reason, and that's enough to keep fighting another day.
Yes.
Right? And like, to me, that is just everything, right? Because like, again, if you have that conviction and you have that belief that what you're doing is the only right thing to do, and that you and your comrades are strong enough and smart enough to keep going, like that's it. That's all you need. And even here, like, where it says like that their leader had that like premonition, presentiment, whatever
idea,
I
literally, or like thought.
Y'all, English, my tongue gets tied up so much with English. Anyway, the I won't live very long, right? And it literally says he died a year later. He was assassinated a year later. And the rest of that gets really graphic also. But like, even though he died, like, that wasn't the end either, right? Because they were not fighting because of one person. They were not fighting because of who their one leader was. Yes, he was vital. He was important to carrying them through, right? But what carries us is that faith in the masses, and is that faith for liberation, and that like we as a people are strong enough, right? And like it just like when you have that centered, like it, not even the bombs of the US military can deter you.
Yeah, no, yeah, full unity with that, and also I was gonna say unity. Unity is the thing that also like kept them together.
Mm-hmm.
Like unity to the people,
Mm-hmm.
right, and unity to the people's interests.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're fully united in that, and you create the discipline
Mm-hmm.
to maintain it,
Mm-hmm.
it gives you the confidence to carry out like your what you need to do, and we're not necessarily about saying I won't live very long,
No,
because
tampoco.
what we're trying to say is we're seeing this through. We're seeing revolution through. Um, but we see that Sandino was like very prepared to move on a plan to take on one of the world's biggest powers. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I like what Virgil said. Organizing with the vanguard is the smartest move and the only move. Oh, everyone dropping quotes. Colibri said, "To not fight is to let them win. Unity of the people will bring victory."
They
Dang.
look at us.
Okay, everyone dropping that quotes. That's exactly right. That's exactly what it is. I highlighted this section too. It's just like it's yeah it's very like it's possible. It just makes
Exactly.
everything possible.
Exactly. Like again, like to go off what Colibri said, right? Like to give up is the only guarantee that you'll lose. Like
Hmm.
that's it. And like again, yeah, we don't. We're not about that. I'm not gonna live very long because, please, we're all trying to see liberation.
Yeah,
That's
Castro was 90, 96, 92. He was pretty old up there.
that's wild. That's beautiful.
It is.
And we will get there.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there.
But yeah, no, yeah, but
Mhm.
we're gonna keep pushing and being the revolutionaries that our revolutionary ancestors and our just ancestors want us to be, like we talked about at the beginning,
Exactly.
right? And so no matter like which crop or like product or whatever that your ancestors were working on and were forced to work on, like remember that like what connects all of us is that we have the willpower and the drive to keep moving forward. And that's why you are here today as a colonized person, because
Mhm.
those ancestors had the willpower and drive to keep pushing forward enough to give hope to some kind of future where maybe that this next generation can stop and end what they have gone through.
Talk about quotes.
That's the goal, y'all. All right, land back. Let's get into these announcements. We always be emotional before announcements. All right.
You.
I'm a Scorpio, y'all. I'm emotional. So watch the Revolutionary Church. All right, every Sunday. It was today. It was a
It was a
good
good one.
Revolutionary Church today. The people knew what was up. They were told straight up what this is about, what Black Hammer is about. No punches held back. It
And
was,
they were about
and
it.
they were about it. They were about it. And so watch the Revolutionary Church every Sunday on Facebook, and you can watch the upload on youtube.com/BlackHammerTV. Yeah, every Sunday at noon Eastern time. So yeah.
Mhm.
And make sure to call the Atlanta City Solicitor's Office still, 404-658-6618, extension 5, to tell them to drop the charges on our Atlanta Hammers who were arrested for doing that very revolutionary church for feeding and clothing the homeless. So make sure you call that number, demand these charges be dropped, especially these next few weeks. Let's get it in. And then what are we reading for next week?
Next week, same amazing book, Open Veins of Latin America. Pages 115 through 134. It's a short section, 19 pages. So bring those read that back.
Yeah, it should be easy enough to bring those reader bags to 19 pages. And this finishes up chapter 2
Mm-hmm.
in part 1, I think, of us. Or no, maybe just chapter 2. This finishes up chapter 2. So, let's finish up the chapter so
Mm-hmm.
that we can, keep on learning more about, a lot of facts about
A lot.
Pachamama and Turtle Island. But yes, land back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. You can always share this book trap later after it ends, and people can watch it, later on. A lot of people do actually,
Yeah.
and like they be giving comments and sending messages later on saying, "Oh, this says this." It's like, "Oh wow, this is like I never knew that," So keep on sharing it. People will always be looking for that political education. All right.